welcome to the podcast that must not be named. I'm Luke.
I am Melissa.
And we are doing Chapter 11, Quidditch. This chapter is 14 pages, 4.53% of this book. Melissa, let's hear your executive summary.
Leading up to the first Quidditch game, Harry was overwhelmed with work and Hermione was helping him out. On a break during school hours, Harry, Ron, and Hermione noticed Snape was walking with a limp. Well, on that same break, Snape took Harry's copy of Quidditch Through the Ages. Harry, of course, wanted it back, and later went to the teacher's lounge to ask for it. Instead of getting the book, however, Harry saw a huge gash on Snape's leg and overheard him saying something about, "How do you keep your eyes on all three heads at once?" Harry and Ron start to think that Snape let the troll in as a distraction to try stealing whatever is hidden in the third-floor corridor. On the morning of the first Quidditch game, Harry is too nervous to eat, even with Hermione's prompting. After a well-rehearsed pep talk, aided, of course, by the Weasley twins, Oliver Wood leads his team onto the field, and the game is commentated by Lee Jordan, friend of the Weasley twins. As the game progresses, Slytherin, to no one's surprise, begins to play dirty, and while Harry once spots the golden snitch, he loses it after being blindsided by Marcus Flint. Harry then loses control of his broomstick, which is obvious to the crowd. Hermione scans the crowd and sees Snape cursing the broom, so she sneaks off to him, knocking over Quirrell along the way and sets his robes on fire. By breaking the eye contact of the cursor, Hermione allows Harry to regain control of the broom. As Harry speeds to the ground, he begins to choke on something. The something is the snitch that he spits out and ends the game with a score of 170-60 for Gryffindor. When Harry and the gang explain to Hagrid about their theory of Snape trying to get past the three-headed dog, Hagrid lets slip two new pieces of information. The first is, the dog's name is Fluffy, and it belongs to Hagrid. And the second is, that whatever that dog is guarding is between Dumbledore and someone named Nicholas Flamel.
We have a few character introductions this chapter, and most of them are Quidditch players. We have the Gryffindor Chasers, Angelina Johnson and Katie Bell, and Alicia Spinnet as well, or Alicia, whichever way.
I had friends who said it both.
Yeah, I would
say Alicia.
I say Alicia.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have several Slytherin players that we've met. The Captain Marcus Flint, Adrian Pusey, Terrence Higgs, and the Slytherin Keeper, Bletchley. The only other character that we meet or is named, we've actually met before, is Fluffy, the three-headed dog.
The only new location within Hogwarts that we have seen in this chapter is the staff room. So the staff actually have a place to go to be kid-free.
Mm-hmm. That's nice.
Yes.
Only one Magicabulary word this week, and that is the book Quidditch Through the Ages.
And now on to our in-depth analysis. My first thought here is that I like that Dean is an artist. That goes back to our thoughts from the last couple of episodes where we talk about differentiating between the different characters.
Mm-hmm.
And
These secondary or tertiary characters.
Yes. So I like that not only do we know that Dean is a West Ham soccer fan.
Right. That's how he's introduced.
Yes,
Dean,
the
West Ham fan.
He's also an artist and makes a very spectacular sign on, my next point, ruined sheets. Which is Scabbers, again, ruining sheets. I love that they're, first of all, recycling.
Mm-hmm.
Things.
I actually missed that. I forgot. I didn't notice that.
But it is Scabbers who ruined the sheets. So that rat is not well behaved. My other kind of thought here is that if you are not a huge fan of the Harry Potter books, although while you're listening to this, I don't know why. Yeah. You will be listening to this if you're not.
Yeah.
One of the very best moments in this whole book is Lee Jordan's commentary. It is hysterical. I can't be excited enough. It is just brilliant. The way he commentates, the way he absolutely shows favoritism to the Gryffindor team. And then McGonagall cutting in, being that supervising editor of, you can't say that. You can't say that.
Mhm.
You can't say that. Like, it's just funny.
Yeah, I think it's funny to see McGonagall doing exactly what you think that she would do, even though we've already seen her have a competitive spirit overall.
Right.
It at least seems that way.
Right.
But she still has to be blatantly PC, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so in this case, she has to, like, deliberately shut that down where, you know, she agrees with it,
Oh,
but
yeah.
she can't let that go so public.
Right. And then, of course, our love for Hagrid. And we do love Hagrid, we do, but he just added to his Hagrid can be a buffoon
Yeah.
point
Yeah,
a lot here.
Fairly unreliable. I just...
Yeah.
Hold your tongue, man. Like, come on.
Some people never learn.
Yeah. No, he's got his faults.
He does.
And we do love him for some of them, you know, but some of them, like, how does
Right.
Dumbledore put up with this?
Because he's a narrative device used to drive the story.
Well said. Well said. So, my notes start with the early descriptions of the weather are incredible. She does a really good job at, like, setting the tone for, you know, it's getting cold, it's getting chilly, you know, and, like, there's cold wind coming over,
Right.
and it's the very first sentence of the chapter, I believe, and it just, I like cold weather, so it puts me in a good mood here, and it's, you know, it's getting brisk, so I just like that.
I, of course, do not like cold weather, and I am looking at it going, I read it as, so the first sentence says, as they entered November, the weather turned very cold. The mountains around the school became icy gray, and the lake like chilled steel. Every morning, the ground was covered in frost. All I think when I hear that is, oh, it's only November, and it's already that cold, and it's going to be cold for so long, and that just sounds miserable.
Yeah, no, I wish it was that cold here in St.
Ugh.
Louis that
No, thank
early
you.
in the year. And that kind of leads me to my next point of there's a line in there where it says Hagrid is defrosting brooms. Like, well, are they just that careless about leaving the brooms out? And why is it Hagrid's responsibility to care for the brooms when they should be the individual? Or does this come back to they are owned by the school?
Maybe.
I
I mean,
don't know.
he is the groundskeeper.
He's not the broomskeeper.
He is not the broomskeeper.
I don't know. I just
You're
thought
right.
that was kind of funny.
It is very funny.
So, jumping to further conclusions about Snape, couldn't he have just been going into Feed Fluffy or anything besides trying to sneak in?
It's possible. I mean, the dog's got to eat and do other bodily function things.
And we know Hagrid is an incredibly busy guy around the grounds of Hogwarts with all this grass cutting that he has to do.
And broom defrosting.
Yeah, that's a job right there.
It is a job. And the Keeper of Keys.
Especially with no magic. Also
true. I don't know. I do think it's weird that they continue to jump to conclusions about Snape. However, it is weird that Snape wasn't following the direction to go to the dungeon to help. I do believe that is suspicious. That Snape wasn't following the direction. He wasn't helping out kids. He wasn't helping out the teachers. He went somewhere else. So it's an odd thing. I would find it odd. Now, I would not immediately connect him just because he doesn't like Harry to being, oh, he's going to sneak in and steal whatever is being hidden. But I do see the suspicion at first.
Sure. It seems pretty drastic.
I agree.
Hermione is a very strong stickler about not copying homework.
True.
That's probably good, but can't she give any help at this point?
She does give help.
Not much.
Doesn't it say that she checks their homework?
I don't think this early on. We can check. I don't think she does anything right now. Later on, absolutely, but
right. But I feel like, yeah, no. It said, okay, so she doesn't let them copy, and the quote in the book says, "She would never let them copy. How will you learn? But by asking her to read through it, they got the right answers anyway." So she didn't let them just copy because she's got a good point. She would make an excellent teacher. She wants them to try it on their own to see if they can or to learn from it. But then she uses their mistakes as teaching points and helps them get it. Honestly, they probably have the best setup. They still have to do their homework, but if they weren't friends with Hermione, they would do their homework and just have it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now they're with Hermione and they get extra tutoring.
Right.
She's really helping them become better learners. And I get, like, from the 11-year-old boy perspective, you're like, whatever, I don't care, it's just homework. But from, like, you know, the greater life lesson, bigger picture thing, she's doing it the right way.
Well, I mean, at the same time, she could just let them get it wrong, and then they could have the teacher notice that they're doing it wrong, and have the teacher take care of that. It's not her job.
It is not her job.
I'm probably going to take
some
of this out.
I agree with you. It's not her job. But that doesn't mean that, benefit from having the smart friend.
Sure.
They don't see it as a benefit, but it really is.
They don't see it.
Right.
So, I have a couple more points, and they all have to do with Quidditch. So this is our first view of a Quidditch match. What are your thoughts on how the game plays out?
I think it's pretty cool. I like the idea of it, and I think she put a lot of effort into making it seem like a real sport. Because it definitely plays like a real sport. It has attributes that you can see from different sports, but it's just different enough that she's not copying anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also not like, oh, they were on brooms and flying around. Like, there's a lot more detail, and I appreciate the detail she put into it. There was thoughts.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of thought put into the culture built around Quidditch, which was well done.
Yes.
The design of the game, I don't think is very good.
Why not?
Mainly because catching the snitch is way too powerful. It should end the game, and it should not be worth 150 points. When 10 points, it takes 15 goals to match catching the snitch.
True.
There's no other sport that's that unbalanced. That one player dictates everything in the game, and it ends the game. It's not like, oh, you get a big point get. It also ends the game. It's just not.
So how would you modify it? Because the rest of it seems okay.
Yeah, and I like the idea of having almost two things going on at once. You have the snitch search, and the chaser beater keeper game.
Right.
Like, that's an interesting dichotomy going on.
Yes.
I like that aspect of it. I think.
Would you just change the point value of the snitch?
The snitch value just needs to come down to like 50.
75.
50.
I would make it not a multiple of 10.
That's interesting.
I would make it not a multiple of 10 because, like, let's say my team has 50 points and the other team has,
so you can still end up in a tie.
120. If the snitch is not a multiple of 10, then you can't tie. That it really does, it adds something. So rather than both of us ending on 120 points, somebody's going to end up with 125.
Sure.
It's just the little bit of edge.
I'm okay with the ending on, a multiple of 5 but not 10.
Right.
I still think 75 is too high.
I don't.
It's just too much. But I don't know.
Okay.
We
can agree that it can come down.
Yes.
I agree. 150
it's
is
definitely
a
fun game, and it's definitely a unique design.
Yes.
Which is cool. So I like that.
I want to know the dimensions of the Quidditch pitch.
Yeah. How big is it?
It's got to be pretty big, right? I'm thinking at least football stadium size, if not larger.
Right. I would think so. Yeah, because, they talk about how fast these brooms can go, and you can, 100 yards, you could probably cover it real quick. So I think it's got to be bigger. I think it's got to be larger than a standard football field. Yeah, that's interesting. And I also think it's really interesting the way the stands are raised up so high. I think that's...
Well, they'd have to be.
Well, but at the same time, you could also play real low. Like they could... So the goals are 50 feet high. So, there's I like the 3-dimensionality of the field because of that, is what I'm getting at.
Right. According to Wikipedia, a standard Quidditch pitch is an elongated oval, which is 500 feet long.
Okay. So just under 300, or just under 200 yards. So less than 2 football fields long.
And 180 feet wide. So that's 60 yards wide.
It's not canon, but that seems reasonable.
But, it's definitely goes to the idea of that it's bigger than a football field. Mm-hmm.
And I think we'll get a lot more into this when we go through Quidditch Through the Ages as one of our auxiliary readings.
Yes. All right.
So my next point is it's mentioned that there are 700 rules in Quidditch, and not one of them pertains to the ejection of a player.
Yeah, there's rules, but what are the consequences?
Right. I mean, you get a penalty shot for trying to knock a kid off his broom, like viciously take another player out. That's, I don't know.
Right.
At least have a penalty box.
Right.
I mean, something.
And that's something we'll have to remember to bring up when we do read Quidditch Through the Ages, after book 3, I believe, is when that'll happen. And then, so when we read Quidditch Through the Ages, I think these will be things that we delve into more about the actual playing of the game.
Right. It just can't eject a player.
Right. Right. Sideline them for a minute, put them in a penalty box.
Right. Something. Snape's robes were on fire for 30 seconds before he realized it.
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
Right.
I mean,
the blue flames must not be very flammable.
Incendiary?
Yeah, like
they don't burn stuff.
They're slow burn. Yes.
Yeah, and that could be. That's a good point. Maybe they don't burn as well. It's more of a non-consuming fire.
Right.
Okay. Okay. That's reasonable. So, at the very end of this chapter, I'm actually going to read this because it's short.
Yes.
But it's very confusing. Neville, you can look, Ron said. Neville had been sobbing into Hagrid's jacket for the last 5 minutes. Harry was speeding towards the ground when the crowd saw him clap his hand to his mouth as though he was about to be sick. He hit the field on all fours, coughed, and something gold fell into his hand. "I've got the snitch," he shouted, waving it above his head, and the game ended in complete confusion. Yeah, it ended in complete confusion because he was just being knocked around, tossed around by his rodeo broom, and then all of a sudden is coughing up the snitch. Like, at what point did the snitch make it into his mouth? When I first read this, I was very confused in that it almost seems like the snitch being in his mouth or in his stomach is what's causing him to be thrown off his broom almost. Like, it's
I see.
The very first time I read it, I was very confused. It didn't even seem like someone was hexing the broom. It was very confusing, and I think it's ended well in that the game ended in complete confusion because it is. I don't know. It's
yeah,
very
I do
short.
remember having to read that a couple of times. Like, wait, he coughed. Oh, okay, I see. But I don't remember putting that much effort into figuring it out. It's just like
so close to the broom stops, and then he coughs up the snitch. It's like how it almost seems like those are related.
Yes.
So I was the very first time I was very confused on that, but they are unrelated.
I can see that.
All right, let's get into your 5 burning questions.
All right, so the first one is, why are the Weasleys allowed to wear wristwatches on the field?
Why wouldn't they be?
Because of the glare and the glint. And it's a sport. I mean, you have to think about the things on your body. You wouldn't wear a wristwatch to play baseball or football or...
Well, quarterbacks wear those plays on the arm wristband things.
But it's probably a plastic wristband as opposed to the glass of the watch, which was glinting, which is how I know about it. I think about, like, my kids play soccer and girls can't wear earrings because it can be dangerous with... I mean, I think it's kind of silly, but I get it. Like, So it just seems to me like jewelry of any kind like that should probably be prohibited. But maybe they don't think that far ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. When the games can last for months, you probably need to have some kind of way to tell time.
Okay.
I don't know. There's no scoreboard showing the time on the clock, so maybe it only shows the time of the game. I don't know. There's really no time aspect of the game, though. So
no.
I don't know.
I think it's unnecessary that they're wearing watches.
I agree. I don't think it should be against the rules, though.
Okay. Next question. How does no one else notice Snape performing a curse other than a first-year student? And I know we've talked about before that her level of ability is really probably more on par as a 3rd year, but still, nobody else sees it? Nobody? Not even the people around him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it'd probably be pretty distracting to see famous Harry Potter being thrown off his broom. Like, what is going on here? There's no explanation. So it's more trying to watch because he's actively trying to be, bucked off.
Right.
And so maybe that's more distracting, and no one else is really suspicious of Snape like Hermione and Ron would be. I don't know. It's a good point.
Okay. I just find it very odd that nobody else sees anything.
And I'll say, a lot of the times, I completely agree with you. I just have to play devil's advocate a little bit.
I know. I believe you.
But,
of course you do. Because I'm right.
We're both right.
All right, so moving on to the next question. What would you do with blue flames that you could carry around in a jar?
I would carry it around in a jar. No.
And what would you do with it?
I would have bonfires all the time.
See, I would just have it in my classroom and I would roast marshmallows as I'm teaching.
Oh, that's cool.
Here, roast marshmallow for you.
Yeah, little smokies, little hot dogs.
No, just the little.
Either way,
even the little mini marshmallows. Oh, you got a question right. Here, roasted marshmallow.
At my desk, it'd be just for me.
Here,
so.
roasted Yeah, well, I have 60 some odd kids, 70 kids that come into my room every day. So
No, that's fun. I would just have small little non-consumable bonfires at my desk.
There you go.
That'd be
Great.
fun.
What is the criteria for being a Quidditch announcer? The second part to that is Lee Jordan the only student who announces? Does he do all the games? Or does someone from each house get to be the announcer when their team is the home team?
That's a good question. This is the only Quidditch match that we've seen.
Uh-huh.
But, and he is pretty funny.
He's very funny. That's what I'm saying. Did he have to try out and he's the official Quidditch announcer?
He's funny, and he seems to be fairly skilled at it. He seems to have a good announcer voice and rapport with the crowd.
And understanding of the game and how it works.
And so I think he probably did audition and probably got the job, and it's just kind of a byproduct that he's going to be biased towards
Gryffindor when Gryffindor plays.
Right.
Got it.
I bet McGonagall's sitting pretty close to him all the time, no matter who's playing.
A hand on the shoulder.
Right.
Okay.
But that would be interesting to see if other teams had their own announcers as well.
Or if he is the only one, what happens when he leaves?
Then they have to audition somebody else. We know we assume he's the Weasley twins' age.
Because he's their friend.
Right. So I mean, they're third years. So maybe he just got it this year. So maybe this is his first match doing it.
It could be.
So maybe his off the cuff rants about Marcus Flint. Maybe that's just his rookiness showing through.
And my last question is, what would have happened if Harry had fallen off his broom?
He probably would have been hurt.
But I mean, does the game stop? Do they just allow the other team to keep going and find the snitch?
Right.
Do the chasers and beaters for Gryffindor still have to keep playing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if the seeker is incapable of continuing, does it just keep going until he can come back? If the other seeker can never catch the snitch, do they just keep playing until he's recovered enough to come and catch it? I don't know. That's interesting. Or is there a
sub?
A sub, or even you just play a down a man and
somebody else takes over.
Relegate one of the chasers, or you have a secondary seeker dictated.
Well, they did say
the
that
game.
Katie Bell was not Katie Bell. That Alicia Spinnet was a reserve the year before, wasn't it? Katie. One of them.
Yes, she was a reserve.
That's right.
Before.
Alicia Spinnet was a reserve. So, can you bring in a reserve?
I don't know.
Do they have a reserve?
Or is it a roster has to be, handed in to Madam Hooch prior to the start of the game? I don't know. That's interesting. It would be probably most practical to have a reserve, someone sitting in the locker room or on the bench that could just come and take their place. But I doubt that's what happens.
True. Yeah. And we never hear about anybody practicing with them or anything.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Right. That's a good point, though. Good question. All right. Let's get into the chapter superlatives. What was your favorite line of this chapter?
So, after that obvious and disgusting bit of cheating, Jordan, growled Professor McGonagall. I mean, after that opening and revolting foul, Jordan, I'm warning you. All right. Flint nearly kills a Gryffindor seeker, which could happen to anyone, I'm sure, so a penalty to Gryffindor taken by Spinnet, who puts it away, no trouble, and we continue play, Gryffindor still in possession. Go Lee Jordan.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's pretty funny.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So he nearly kills a Gryffindor seeker, which could happen to anyone, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, that's no big deal.
Right, whatever. Let me not comment on that. Let me get in trouble. Like, you can hear the expression and the voice and the frustration in those words without even having to hear somebody say them. It's just amazing.
And he does skillfully kind of start retracting a bit. You know, like he does a good job at putting it in a way that McGonagall would be okay with. Pretty quick on the fly. That's well done.
Nope, I like that one a lot.
So mine was, but the news that he was playing Seeker had leaked out somehow, and Harry didn't know which was worse. People telling him he'd be brilliant, or people telling him they'd be running underneath him holding a mattress. That's pretty funny.
That was like my second choice.
Yeah.
That was a really, really good one.
I just picture the like a fire brigade with like a big trampoline, like people jumping out of a burning building, like running underneath as a group.
And here's what's funny: he probably could have really used that.
Yeah, and in this case, that would not. At the end of it, he would have welcomed it if it came down to it.
Right? Where's my mattress? Where are you? You said you were going to help.
Bring out the mattress. So, who was your chapter MVP?
I'm going to go with the commentator, Lee Jordan.
Yeah,
he was just too funny. Just too funny. Well done, well executed by showing personality, by showing Gryffindor like allegiance without distracting from his accurate calling of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. My honorable mention for this chapter has got to go to Hermione. She, once again, saves Harry's butt, saves Harry from falling, and gets him out of trouble in this case. And, yeah, she's a pretty good friend to have around.
Yes, I agree. Thank you all for joining us for Chapter 11. Please join in when we continue our discussion next week of Chapter 12.
The Mirror of Erised.
In the meanwhile, we'd love to hear from you at Not Named Podcast on Twitter, thepodcastthat.com, or the podcast that must not be named at Gmail. Enjoy your week. Thanks.